Hi, I'm Andy Masterson, and a few months ago I was on Overlord Doomcock's channel. He was kind enough to feature me on his show to talk about the action figure I made for him. Since then, I've gotten a few requests on explaining the process that I used to make the action figure. I've also done Gary from Nerdrotic, and I did Az from Heel vs. Babyface, and so I figured I should try and put this together to help other people that are trying to get into this hobby. I've been doing this for quite a few years. I started off with making action figures for my son when he was a few months old. We were taking him through a toy store, and I saw a 12-inch Hasbro Obi-Wan Kenobi figure from The Phantom Menace. And I said, I'm getting this for him. And his mother looked at me and she just said, you don't even know if he's going to like Star Wars. I said, oh, he'll like Star Wars. Which he did. And Obi-Wan and that action figure were always his favorite. So I was hanging out on some forums, and I started picking up pointers on how to customize action figures, how to make your own heads out of resin, and making silicone molds and casting the resin. So it started from there, and I've kept up on it over the years. Now, I've done a lot of trial and error, and I've made a ton of mistakes, and hopefully the purpose of this video is so that other people can learn from the mistakes that I did and maybe not make them. Okay, so materials. I like to use Super Sculpty Firm. As the name suggests, it's much more firm than the typical little squares you'll buy, which do have a purpose. I like to use them for something else, but this is really good for doing head sculpts with. It is a little bit more resistant on the fingerprints and things like that can kind of get in the way as you're working with it. So you start off with taking a piece of the clay. Now, the first thing you need to know if you're working on this is what body you're going to put it on. Since I've discovered Hot Toys, which are the industry standard, it's the gold star as far as like 1/6 scale figure goes, and if you want something that's going to be on a shelf that's going to be comparable or in company with them, you want it to sort of match. The average Hot Toys head that I've found is about 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches high, or about 40 millimeters. Now, you can use a ruler. It's a little difficult. What I found was I ordered an electronic caliper off of Amazon. I think it's about $10. And you can take this, and you press the button, and you measure this out, and this is about 40 millimeters high. Now the eyes, the eyes are exactly in the center of the head. So what you want to do is take this to 20. You place the top edge at the top of the head, and you use the bottom foot there to just kind of mark where the eyes should be. Then you start to cut in the basic shape of the head. So as you see, there's an indentation here in the skull to where the face comes out this way. So that the head actually it doesn't look like this, it's actually kind of comes out this way. And you want to get that basic shape down with the basic measurements. From this point, you want to take this and you want to put it on a wooden dowel. Now, I used to use a round one because it was easier. You draw it in, it makes a circle, and you can just plug it in. But the head will spin around on a circular one. If you use a squared dowel, it will actually help to keep the head in better position. Now, the reason for this is if you're holding this, you won't realize it, but you're putting pressure on the top of this. So you're going to be sitting here and you're going to be working on all this detail on the face, and then you're going to get it done and realize that you've been pushing on the head. Now the forehead is too short and it's pushed all the way in the back, and you have to try and fix this without damaging all that work you've put in on the face. It's much easier to mount this on a piece of wood and work on it like this. Yeah, you'll have to kind of cradle a little bit, but be careful that you're not deforming the shape of the head. The next thing we want to look at are tools, and you can buy the sculpting tools at the craft stores. They come in handy for some things. In my experience, you're going to be using things that are much more fine-tuned. In some of the forums that I was in, there were professional sculptors that would pop in, and oddly enough, the tools that many of them used to sculpt with were actually dental tools. So I had a friend of mine who was a dental assistant, and so when they were throwing out their old dental tools and getting new ones, she would kind of put them in her pocket and hand them off to me, which worked out great. But I also found that at Harbor Freight, they have sculpting tools or also lockpick tools like this that are very, very inexpensive. And you can buy these, and you can even modify some of them, which I've done. I've shortened some of these things. I also recommend a good X-Acto knife and some styluses. Very small, and they increase in size and thickness to this size, and they'll help you to smooth things out. Also, you want to look at how to achieve a smoother texture on some of your sculptures. Isopropyl alcohol will dissolve the Sculpey, and I usually apply it with either a paintbrush or a makeup wedge, which my daughter was kind enough to share with me. Also, you can use craft foam. Again, dipping in a little bit of the alcohol, and you rub it, and it will also give some texture to the skin. There are some other techniques that work on applying textures to the skin, which I'll get into in a later video. It's a little bit more complicated to work on than I want to cover here. This is just basics that we're looking at as far as like materials you want to use, tools that you're looking for, and how to do certain things without causing yourself too much aggravation. But anyway, that's basically how I start with things. When you're curing the Sculpey, the directions say to place the clay in the oven at 275 degrees per quarter inch of material. I like to start off the temperature a little bit lower at about 180 degrees, leave it in there for 20 minutes, and gradually raise the temperature up 220, 240, then 275. Then I'll leave it in there, and it's not a very big thing, but I'll leave it in there for a full hour. When the hour is done, turn the oven off. Let it cool inside the oven. It is heartbreaking to see something that you've spent hours and hours on trying to work at. You took it out of the oven too soon, and as it cooled, the clay can crack. This is much less likely to happen if you leave it cool off inside the sealed oven. So try and time your sculptures so that you're not interfering with somebody who's going to come along and put a pot roast in the oven and take your stuff out. So I usually work late at night. Sometimes I'll be in my kitchen, sometimes I'll be downstairs at my art table. But leave it in the oven to cool off. But basically that's the process that I use. And when I get I generally sculpt the heads for these action figures bald, because it's easier for me to add hair later, because again, The more you're handling this, the more you can touch things and mess up some of the detail you put in there. I will use the Super Sculpey Firm for the head itself, but I use a regular Sculpey with a little bit of a color difference in there, like a regular gray, which shows up differently compared to this. And I will shape the shape of the hair with my fingers, and then use sculpting tools to cut the details of the strands of the hair into it. That's probably one of my weakest areas, is the hair sculpting, and there are a few other tutorials online that will show you how to do it better. But it does work this way. And then again, you can brush it with your alcohol. I use 90% isopropyl alcohol. I find it works best. It is very powerful, and it will take away some detail, so you want to be careful with it. Again, know the body you're going to put it on. Female head sculpts are going to be much smaller than the males. And also most female head sculpts have rooted hair wigs that go on them. So that's a little bit of a difference there. And you want to keep those things in mind as you're doing these. But basically that's it. That's the process that I use. And again, once you get the hair done, put that in the oven and cure it again. And let it cool inside the oven. But that's the method that I use to make these. And I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them on there, and I'll see if I can get on there and help you out with them. Thank you.